A little over 4 years ago, Kia wanted to enter the affordable electric vehicle space with the 2019 Kia Niro EV. Now, at the time, it competed with vehicles like the Chevrolet Bolt and the Nissan Leaf. And for 2023, Kia has given the Niro a complete redesign. They still offer 3 different flavors of the Niro, from the hybrid to the plug-in hybrid and to the full electric. And as you can see this week, Kia has loaned me the electric version of the car, which means we have up to 253 miles of range. We have 201 horsepower from its single electric motor powering the front wheels, and we have an interior that has been fully redesigned, adopting a lot of the styling cues and the tech features that we see in their higher-end electric vehicle known as the Kia EV6. Now, since I've already had a chance to drive this vehicle out in California sometime last year, this week we're going to live with the Niro EV for a full week. We're going to put it through our usual battery of tests, and we're going to find out, has Kia made enough changes to the second generation Niro EV to keep this vehicle relevant? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the exterior styling changes for the second generation model, let's go ahead and pop the hood and show you guys what is underneath here, because with a lot of electric vehicles, customers want to know, does this vehicle have a frunk? And Kia actually added a frunk for the second generation model. Now, as you can see underneath this plastic cover here, when you lift this up, there is a very small frunk. It's about the same size as what you find in the Kia EV6. It probably measures 0.5 cubic feet. It literally has enough space for just the electric vehicle charging cable, the mobile charger that the car can or should come with, but I believe it's optional, just like the EV6. But since we're underneath here, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs. We have, just like last year's model, a single electric motor powering the front axles. It delivers 201 horsepower. However, Kia has reduced the torque of this powertrain significantly. It now makes 188 pound-feet of torque. That is down compared to 291 pound-feet of torque that we had in the prior generation. Kia, I suspect, reduced the torque to keep this vehicle in the correct space within the lineup, because the old one had just too much torque that was kind of out-torquing the EV6. And also, I believe Kia wanted to improve the drivability, because the old Niro just had too much torque for its front wheels, and it literally did burnouts every time you went near the throttle pedal. Now, it all goes out through a 1-speed reduction gear transmission, and all Niro EVs are fed, or the power is fed by a 64.8 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack. So that hasn't changed prior to the compared to the first generation model. Kia says you should be able to do around 253 miles of range. They did improve that number from 239, so that's always nice to get, or nice to see. And in terms of performance, Kia claims 0 to 60 in 7.1 seconds. It has a top speed of just over 100 miles an hour. Niros are actually surprisingly rated to tow. I think they can tow a maximum of like 1,600 pounds or so with the trailer brakes. And as this vehicle sits, it weighs in at just over 3,800 pounds. Because remember, this vehicle doesn't offer all-wheel drive, and that was kind of a missed opportunity on Kia's end to offer all-wheel drive. But let's go ahead and show you guys really quick here behind this little door. The Niro EV has the charge port. It's right here at the front of the vehicle, which is just like the prior generation. You can see it includes their J1772 plug, along with a CCS combo plug. This vehicle will be able to accept a maximum of 85 kilowatts on a level 3 DC fast charger, which means you can go from 10 to 80% in about 43 minutes, which is pretty slow. I mean, Kia's own EV6 literally charges like 4 times faster than this. You can do the same charge in about 18 minutes, and we have a larger battery. So it is a little disappointing to see that Kia didn't want to make this vehicle faster to charge. However, compared to the Chevrolet Bolt and the Nissan Leaf, this does charge faster than both of those competitors. But let's go ahead and close up the hood and talk about the exterior styling. Now, Kia is taking a lot of cues here from the Habanero concept that they showed, I believe, in Detroit a few years ago. It's certainly a very standoutish, futuristic design, and it definitely looks good, especially on the EV version. You can see it's got their tiger nose grille, although it's been adopted for electric vehicles because it's completely closed off. You have the new Kia logo there with some metallic accents. And then you can see the headlights, very, very distinctive looking. My tester being the fully loaded wave trim includes full LED headlights with an LED daytime running light, LED low and high beams, and then you also get LED fog lights on this trim. So fog lights are kind of going away on a lot of vehicles. It's nice to see that Kia includes that. I also like how the fog light is kind of built in to the geometric shapes that you find in the actual grille. There are some actual openings down here, which do let in some air, of course, for aerodynamics. And then you can see, moving around the side profile of the vehicle, the Niro remains a relatively small hatchback. I mean, they like to call this a crossover, but it only has 5.9 inches of ground clearance, so you're not going to be going off-roading, and as I mentioned earlier, no all-wheel drive on this vehicle, so again, you're not going to be wanting to go too far off the road. Now looking at the wheels, these are the 17-inch Aero wheels that you get standard on the EV. These are the same wheels whether you go for the base or the wave trim. They're wrapped in a 215/55 R17 tire, so plenty of sidewall cushion. These tires should also be relatively affordable to replace. You can see four-wheel disc brakes and an all-independent suspension. My tester has kind of like this interesting gray for the wheel arches that kind of carries over into that Aero blade at the back. The side mirrors, you can see, have an integrated turn signals. These are also power folding. That's what you get on the wave trim. And then you also get some satin chrome trim along the belt line, which is an upgrade versus the chrome. You also have a power sunroof that is included as standard when you guys go for the wave trim. Now, in terms of the dimensions, this is a small vehicle. Its overall length is around 174 inches. It has a 107.1 inch long wheelbase. That's an increase of about 1 inch and 2 inches respectively over the prior generation. And then when you look over at the rear, I really like that character line and of course the styling cues here with that Aero blade, where you can get this car as a one continuous paint finish, but I also really like this kind of white color with the metallic gray accents. It definitely gives this car an interesting look. From the rear, I see a lot of design philosophy cues here from like a French car, like a Peugeot or something like that. Or perhaps a Saab. It's an interesting looking vehicle for sure. I like how Kia includes a rear wiper. You also have a full length rear LED brake light along with the LED daytime running lights, or I'm sorry, LED brake light taillights and then LED turn signals. You also have your LED reverse lights down there. And then as you can see in the rear bumper, no exhaust tips. You will get that of course on the hybrid and the plug-in hybrid, but not on the electric. And then if you open up the trunk, you can see Kia does include a power liftgate with a smart feature. So if I stand back here with the key for 3 seconds, it'll also open the liftgate. This is included when you guys go for the wave trim. It's kind of worth it to go for this higher trim. And then in terms of cargo space, this is pretty decent. It's rated at 23 cubic feet of storage space with the second row seat up. Underneath here, you can see a decent amount of storage underneath here. There is no spare tire just to fix a flat kit. You'll also find, I believe, the amp for the Harman Kardon stereo system. If you fold down that second row seat, it expands the cargo to a little over 53 cubic feet of space, which is fine. It's a little bit more versus what you get, I believe, in the Nissan Leaf. But if you're going to compare this car to, other vehicles that are sedans, like a Tesla Model 3, you can see the Kia Niro definitely has that advantage for it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the interior of the all-new Kia Niro EV. However, before we get inside, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is Kia's newer key fob that was introduced on the Stinger about 5-6 years ago. You can see it has a lot of buttons on here for your lock, unlock, power liftgate, panic, and you also have remote start, and you can also use the Smart Park feature where you can move the vehicle forward and back from the actual fob. I wasn't expecting to see that at this price point, although this car does have basically an EV6 price point as well, so it's nice that Kia is including that. If you have access to the Kia app on your smartphone, you can also access this vehicle through that app as well. Now, as you can see, unlike the EV6, you have a traditional door handle here where you can basically lock it by touching the outside of the handle. That activates the power folding mirrors that's included on this trim. Touch the back, you can see that unlocks the door for you, and then you pull that like a traditional car, which opens up to reveal the interior. Now, I love this color combination. You can see they've taken a lot of cues in here from the EV6, specifically the seats. You can see this is their Syntex faux leather seats, which are also heated and ventilated. That's included when you guys go for the wave trim. The base trim has a cloth and Syntex mix with a heated seat, but no ventilated seats. You have a 10-way power driver's seat with 2-person lumbar. And you also have the same thing on the passenger side that's included when you go for this trim. This trim also includes 2-person memory for the driver, which is definitely nice. And it gives you kind of that upscale feel along with those aluminum pedals. It just makes for a great first impression. The door panel, you can see, has a soft touch injection molded plastic, some gray accents, soft touch right here, soft over here. You have one touch up, down for both front windows, but not for the rear. They're not one touch. And then you can see a lot of piano black trim. My tester also includes the 7-speaker Harman Kardon stereo that's included with the Wave package. But overall, I love this interior color combination with the two-tone gray and black look. It just goes well with the white exterior. Now, getting inside, it definitely tries to have a higher step-in position. It kind of feels like I'm getting into a Niro, although it's a little bit of a narrower vehicle. And then as I get in and shut the door has a solid sounding thunk. This is built off of the newer N3 architecture that it shares with some Hyundai products as well. Now you can see the steering wheel basically taken off of the EV6. I love how it's a white steering wheel with the new Kia logo. The start-stop button is down here right by the shifter. Push that, you can hear it It has the usual Kia startup noises. Obviously no startup here because it's an electric vehicle. But you're greeted by two 10.25-inch displays. This is standard across the board. Even on the base version, you have one over here and one over here. And it kind of looks like one continuous piece of glass because this is one piece here, although this is kind of dead space right here. The steering wheel does have a manual tilt and telescoping adjustment. It offers a good amount of adjustability and range. You have all these usual buttons here for the Kia Drive Wise package, which is standard. Their driver assistance tech. You have paddles on the wheel to control the regen braking. This vehicle does offer a form of one-pedal driving. Although its max setting doesn't really offer the same kind of one-pedal driving that you get from the EV6. You have a drive mode selector here that allows you to go from eco, normal, sport, and snow. So there's 4 drive modes. It kind of changes the way the gauges look as well when you start using that. The horn, it sounds good. It doesn't sound puny. It's a little nondescript, but at least it doesn't have like a dinky horn like in some other EVs. Now, over here on the rest of the dash, you can see it has a soft touch injection molded plastic, although with a kind of texturized feel to it. It definitely feels a little bit cheap. The wave trim also includes a nice heads-up display, which shows you all your usual information, although it doesn't have the augmented reality view that you get in some other, the EV6, for example. Down here, you can see, just like the EV6, you have this panel which has dials for your temperature control for the driver and the passenger, and if you touch this button, it switches to audio information, so you have a tuning and a volume knob. This definitely takes some getting used to how it switches, but once you do, it's kind of nice because Kia wanted this to have minimal in terms of buttons. These are touch sensitive buttons, as you can see. Which again, it takes a little bit of getting used to. This system here still does not have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so you can see my phone is connected here via USB-A. There's also a USB-C. Once you connect your phone, you can see the CarPlay looks nice. It's quick and snappy and responsive. You can also adjust this to be a split screen layout. I have it on the single screen right now, but you can see this also includes GPS built into the vehicle, which also looks pretty decent. It's nothing super fancy. There's an EV page here that shows you your range, and it shows you all your usual charging station that's nearby and stuff like that. When I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see just a backup camera with front and rear parking sensors, includes trajectory. There's no full top-down 360 camera. You don't really need it for a vehicle like this, but the resolution is perfectly fine. Down here you can see you have actual hard buttons for your heated and ventilated seats, along with a heated steering wheel. That's all very nice. I love how it's a hard button. You can also push that button here. It also will automatically parallel park itself, which is pretty cool. Or, I'm sorry, not that. This just brings up the camera, which allows you, again, to show that without having to put it into gear. The EV6, I believe, is the one that has the automatic parallel parking feature, although I don't believe this vehicle has that function because, again, yeah, that's just for your views. Electronic parking brake over here. You have your cup holders right here, which have the ability to kind of stow away to give you a little bit more of a storage area, which also allows you to pop it out there. You can see there's a little bit of storage there. Open that up. There's some separate storage over there for the center console. It's not very big. You can see that's padded, which is also pretty nice. It doesn't slide forward or back, but it's in a pretty decent position for me. The seats, I mentioned earlier, are a fake leather material. They're heated and ventilated. The fake leather definitely won't convince you into thinking it's real leather, but the seats are comfortable and supportive. I also like how the headrest, you can adjust it forward and back to have it come out a little bit more or go back in if you'd like by pushing this button over here. You can also make it go up and down. The glove box, you can see, open that up. It's a bin style. It's stamped but not lined with felt. There is some ambient lighting in this cabin, kind of splashed throughout. You can change the color, although it's nothing super fancy like what you're going to find from some European brands. And you can see here there's an auto-dimming rearview mirror, but no digital camera rearview mirror. You also have a sunroof, which opens up in the traditional way. And it also has a manual sunshade. There are LED map lights in here, which is included on the wave trim. And overall, the feel in here is definitely a lot more upscale. It has a decent amount of interior space, and it just makes you feel like you're driving almost like a miniaturized EV6, which is nice. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat of this vehicle, because unlike a vehicle like the Toyota Prius, although this model doesn't really compete with the Prius, the legroom space is actually pretty good along with the headroom space. You get 37 or just under 37 inches of legroom back here, along with a completely flat floor, which is nice. The seat backs, you can see, they do fold down obviously to give you a flat floor there, but they do not offer a recline function. So that's something that I wish Kia had done, but regardless, it's still a pretty nice place to spend time. As I get back here, you can see at 5'7", I have a decent amount of legroom. Shut the door. You can see the door has the same solid thunk. And then back here, you can see the materials are hard touch plastic versus the soft touch plastic that's in the front. You do have heated rear seats. That's part of a $1,300 upgrade charge that includes a heat pump that my tester has. And then you can see there's also rear seat air vents. You have 2 USB-C charging ports that's built into the seat. You have 2 storage pockets as well in the seat back, which is nice. And then you have an armrest here that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. In terms of the headroom space, you can see 5'7", there's plenty of space for me, but perhaps if you're over 6 feet, you might find the headroom to be a little bit lacking because the sunroof takes up space. But overall, if you need to use this as a family vehicle, the EV6 or the Niro EV will certainly suffice. It does have pretty similar legroom to the EV6. So the Kia Niro EV was one of the first mainstream EVs to really challenge the Chevrolet Bolt and the Nissan Leaf when it came out like about 4 years ago. So now that we're finally driving the 2nd generation model for an extended period of time, it kind of has a new mission in Kia's lineup. They really have got to reposition this car because of the EV6, and the model that we're driving here is the Wave version. So it's about $47,000. It's got 253 miles of range. When I last drove this car, it was a brief moment. So now that I have the car for a week, I can actually test it out and see what it's like to live with on a daily basis. The first thing I do want to retest is the 0 to 60 performance. Kia did reduce the torque by 100 pound-feet over that for this new generation, which is kind of sad. But they claim 0 to 60 in 7.1 seconds. We're starting out here with a full charge, and we'll go ahead and see what we can get. Remember, this is a front-wheel drive vehicle. 0 to 60 in 6.65 seconds, which is quite a bit faster than what I first got when I initially tested this vehicle last year. I think I got like 7 seconds. So 6.65 is respectable. This is pretty much on par with the performance you're going to get from a Chevrolet Bolt and a Bolt EUV. This is going to be quicker, I believe, than a Nissan Leaf. And 6.6 is definitely going to be fast enough for most people. So even though Kia did reduce the torque of this powertrain by significant amounts, they did it because the old Niro had so much torque, almost 300 pound-feet, that it literally roasted the front tires every time you went by the near the throttle. But let's go ahead and try it out again right here, see what we can get. This time I'm not going to brake torque it, I'm just going to floor it, and it's in sport mode. Again, no wheel spin because of that limiting the power initially. They have also tuned it to be much more linear. 7.08 there, and this is with the this is with it more going slightly uphill. So again, respectable performance for a car like this, considering we only have 201 horsepower. It's only front wheel drive. It's got a single speed reduction gear transmission. It is definitely got this is the quickest version of the Niro in the family. So, and the thing is with all that EV torque, you still feel the front end kind of lose grip when you put your foot down hard. The front actually will lift up, the rear squats. And this is still fast. I like the way this car drives. I mean, it drives very comparably to the last Chevrolet Bolt EUV that I drove. But with this next generation Niro architecture, the structure feels solid. It doesn't feel so much like an economy car, which is nice. I feel very much baby EV6 in the DNA for this vehicle, especially when you look at the interior, the steering wheel, the way the seats feel. Now, there are a couple of elements in this vehicle that does remind you it is based off of a more economy-minded car. Mainly, it's the noise. I do hear some road noise and some wind noise creep in at higher speeds, and that's because this car just doesn't have as much sound deadening material. It is, at its roots, an economy hatchback, but because of how premium the interior feels and how the car looks on the outside, it definitely does a better job at masking that. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with the performance and the way this car feels. In the corners, it's definitely more of a softer car. I was basically expecting that. But let's go ahead and see here, take this turn. Oh, it still will spin the tire out the inside wheel, which is kind of hilarious. So yes, if you want to do smoky burnouts, just turn off everything and then just floor the accelerator when you're in a turn. It'll easily do that screeching of the tires. Although you definitely notice it's not quite as urgent to do it or as quick to do that as the prior generation. And Kia kind of did that to, make it known that the EV6 is the top dog in the electric family, for now at least. The Niro used to be the brand's only EV. You know what, let's try it again here really quick and see what we can get if it's consistent. It just ramps on that power very linearly. It doesn't give you full power until about 40 miles an hour. 6.6 there again. So I'm pretty pleased with I'll be curious to drive the plug-in hybrid version of the Niro because that has about 20 less horsepower than this model, and see if that's kind of the sweet spot. I kind of think that it might be, considering how expensive this car is. There's a little bit of a chirp there, but again, just smooth linear power. If you need this as your daily driver to go to and from work and do the occasional longer trips, the Niro EV is certainly going to fit that bill. Now, I do want to talk about the range because this car, in my week's worth of tests, first of all, on a full charge, it shows around 243 miles in around 50-degree weather. It's starting to warm up here in the South Central PA. And when you switch it to sport mode, it drops the range to around 228. That's a little bit less versus the 253 miles, obviously. In my week's worth of testing, I was averaging around 220 miles on a full charge in real world driving, which is fine. It's perfectly acceptable. It's actually a little bit better than what I was getting in the Toyota BZ4X, which is technically not a competitor of this vehicle. It's a class above, but it really shows you that, you know, Kia has the efficiency card down. In my week's worth of testing as well, I was averaging around 3 miles per kilowatt energy usage, which is excellent. For reference, something like the GMC Hummer EV pickup truck will do around 1.2 miles per kilowatt. Something like the Ford Mustang Mach-E did around 2.2 miles per kilowatt. So nearly 3 miles per kilowatt is excellent. Kia and Hyundai really do a great job with efficiency, which is what it shows in the range, considering we can do, 220 miles on just a 64 kilowatt hour battery pack. It is a smaller battery pack versus what Toyota does in the BZ4X. Although, to be fair, I'll have to retest the Toyota when it's a little bit warmer. It's around 50 degrees outside today, and during my week of testing, it's been around that time, or around that temperature, so it's been good. It's been decent in terms of efficiency. There are a couple of features that this car is missing. It doesn't have the blind view cameras that you get on the EV6. They have to save that for something, but you do still have features like heated and cooled seats. You have a heads-up display. I have a sunroof. I have a 10-way power driver's seat. I have 2 10-inch monitors, which all look very nice. And this vehicle's ride quality is also good. It's got an all-independent suspension, and it rides pretty comfortably. Which is the compromise that you get for the somewhat soft limit handling. You get a much, smoother ride quality, which is going to be agreeable for those of you who plan to do longer trips. And really, what I love about the EV is it takes away the big thing that I had about the regular hybrid, was the sluggish acceleration and that jerky 6-speed automatic transmission and just the noisy 4-cylinder that it was attached to. So the electric model gets rid of that, and it gives you instantaneous torque and speed, which is nice. But with the EV6 now in the lineup, it makes this car a little bit of a less enticing proposition, especially when it starts at around 39 grand. You could get something like a Volkswagen ID4 for that price as well, albeit the standard range model, which has less range than this. But for around the same price as this loaded version, Volkswagen will also sell you an all-wheel drive extended range version of the ID4, and that model also qualifies for the $7,500 federal tax credit, which this does not because it's built in Korea. But overall, I like the EV6. The new generation is still a wonderful driving vehicle. It's a great car when you look at it at the baser end as the hybrid, if you can get past the noisiness of the engine, or as the plug-in hybrid, which I'll be looking forward to testing for a full week at some point later this year. But just keep in mind, for this money, you can get some other vehicles, electric vehicles that have similar to not more range or offer all-wheel drive, including something from Kia's own lineup. So after spending a full week with the flagship model of the Niro family, the 2023 Kia Niro EV, I have to say the Niro still is very impressive, especially when you look at how much this is improved versus the prior generation. I love the exterior styling. It definitely has a much more futuristic and premium touch to it. The interior has also been markedly improved. The seats are more comfortable. You have more interior space versus some competitors. You have premium materials. You have great tech features. I love how Kia just basically throws in everything that it's got at the Wave trim for $5,000 extra, and it certainly makes this car feel a lot less like an economy car. Now, in terms of it being an electric vehicle, this is where the Niro EV is starting to show a few dents in the armor. I mean, Kia basically made no changes to the electric vehicle powertrain, and I think that's where they really should have. It would have been nice to see Kia offer all-wheel drive. It would have been nice to see them improve the charging speeds. And it also is kind of surprising that they reduced the torque of this vehicle. I understand why they did it, however, because they want to give you a reason to upgrade into the Kia EV6. I just don't think that Kia has reduced the price of this car enough to justify the fact that for a little bit more, you could just get the Kia EV6 and it can offer all-wheel drive. It can offer much faster charging speed. Its performance, as you guys saw, 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds or 6.6 seconds is perfectly adequate. But really, where this car falters is in the price, because if you guys want the Niro EV, these start at just under $40,000, around $39,500 for the base version. I strongly recommend adding $5,000 for the Wave trim. That's going to include all the features that we talked about during the walk around. It's very much worth the upgrade to go to the Wave. That puts us at around $45,000. My tester with the upgrade package that includes the heat pump and the heated rear seats for an extra $1,300 and the upcharge for this color comes into $47,700. $47,700 for a car that doesn't offer all-wheel drive, that slow charges compared to a lot of faster charging rivals, is a pretty hefty price tag. Also keep in mind that this vehicle is built in Korea, so it sadly does not qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit. I think Kia was counting on that when they were pricing this vehicle out, and now that because it doesn't, it kind of makes this car a little bit less appealing, because for that same money, you could basically buy an EV6, and those start at around $49,000 for the base version. Kia increased the price for 2023 to make room for this vehicle. You could also get a Volkswagen ID4. Those start at $39,000. They qualify for the tax credit. If you want an all-wheel drive ID4, they start at around $47,000, which is the same price as this fully loaded version, which again qualifies for the tax credit. If you also compare this car to the Chevrolet Bolt, that starts at $27,000 for the base version, and it includes the tax credit. So I don't know how Chevy is able to sell the Bolt so cheaply, but it definitely makes a car like this less appealing because of how expensive it is. I think Kia has priced this car about $10,000 too expensive for the base version, because of some of its competitors. Even something like the Nissan Leaf for the long-range version is around $38,000. Again, much more appealing price tag versus this vehicle, although the Leaf does have less range. The Chevrolet Bolt has technically a little bit less range, but it's kind of putting Kia in an awkward position here. So I'll be wondering to see what they eventually do with this car or how sales ends up being, because again, when you have both this and the EV6 in the lineup, it's going to be interesting to see how buyers, end up choosing, because for a little bit more, you can get a vehicle that has more range, more power, and much faster charging speeds. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2023 Kia Niro EV. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.